What scientific discovery would change the course of humanity overnight if it was discovered? Story 1. The discovery of alien life within our solar system, even if microbial. Right now, there's no way to know if life is common in the universe. We could be extraordinarily rare. But if we find even one organism in our system, we will know for almost certain that life is exceedingly common. That will change philosophy everywhere. I read this on Reddit all the time, but I don't think that's necessarily true. There could be a million explanations. First off, what makes us think aliens care about space colonization? They might be perfectly happy at home. Humans talk about it, but there are plenty of people on Earth who don't give a flying crap about colonizing space either. And maybe aliens don't give a crap about us. Humans desperately wanted to discover life on other planets, but that might not be a concept aliens think about or value at all. I feel like a lot of these theories are us unintentionally projecting our own thoughts and feelings onto hypothetical aliens. Plus, the amount of unity and cooperation that it would take to colonize even one planet outside of our own is insane. Story 2. The discovery of some sci-fi-esque alternate dimension telecommunication medium like subspace, untraceable, instantaneous, infinite range connectivity without requiring any infrastructure. Short-term consequence, ISPs would no longer have a viable business model. Their slow, congested, throttled, tiered service versus a perfectly functioning, infinitely fast technology that requires only a transmitter and is not and cannot be throttled or intercepted in any way and has no monthly costs whatsoever, looks pretty clear to me. ESPs lose hard. Mid to long-term consequences, botnets, election rigging, etc., would be even worse than what we have today. China would probably collapse, at least partially, since a China with totally free flow of information would look very, very different compared to what we know as China today. A collapsing China would send ripples throughout the entire world economy, probably triggering smaller collapses. But on the plus side, free anonymous information exchange would be possible once again without having to fear repression and persecution, because something dystopian like the Great Firewall, PRISM, or total information awareness would be impossible. Ultimately, it would lead to a better world, but not without great amounts of pain hitting us first. Also, the current copyright model would not be sustainable in a world where perfect piracy is at everyone's fingertips, forcing content creators to think about how to monetize their work in that new world. Story 3. I think if true AI was created, it would completely change the world. There are so many fundamentals of technology that are changing every day. Just recently, I was in a conference with a few guys working at the University of Toronto, and they said they were trying to change the way that we code. I think a lot of discoveries are often either world-changing or a complete flop. A lot of things that we do are out of habit. We use X formula because that's just the way it is. We eat X food because it's known to be healthy. There are little things all around us that could possibly be extremely dangerous, or the next cure for cancer. The most important thing is to constantly question why we do things. AI is just a few years out from being able to write programs for better AI, which in turn will write better AI. Is this good or bad? Who knows? Either way, we are not prepared for what comes next. When AI becomes better at decision making and planning than humans, what then? This is no longer an if, but a when. It's either going to usher in a new age of humans where technology develops so fast we achieve things previously thought impossible, or it's going to usher in the last age of humans. We're not talking in the far and knowable future. We're talking you will probably still own the shirt you are currently wearing. Story 4. CO2 conversion and neutralization technology. This one will be vital, but at the same time, it would be risky as it would affect nature. Obviously, we'd have to find a balance to reduce the amount of CO2 we have without ending the various flora across the world. Genome replacement or revival to restore species from extinction. We probably are pretty close to this. As well as adjust the genomes of creatures so we can create or clone them with the genome we've created. Think Jurassic Park in that regard. Full dive virtual reality. What would be better? To be able to upload our minds temporarily to a space where we have minimal limitations of our body, except maybe a time limit so we don't spend all day in there unless we decide to upload our minds to the internet. Teleportation. Feasible teleportation that's affordable, that can allow us to get wherever we want, whenever we want, etc. These are just the top 4 I can think of. Story 5. P equals NP. It would mean that every problem has an algorithm to take you directly to its solution. Right now, we think that some problems can be solved by plugging in numbers and solving the equation, while other problems can only be solved by making an educated guess and checking to see if it's either right or close enough. Nesting lengths into linear material is an example of the former. Nesting irregular shapes into a sheet of material is an example of the latter. If we knew that there was a way to arrive at the best possible nest by algorithm, we could find that algorithm. Right now, we can't prove whether or not it exists. Story 6. A effectively reactionless drive for spacecraft. While chemical rockets may still be necessary to get to Earth orbit, once we get there, spacecraft could propel themselves without expelling mass. Basically, they could accelerate indefinitely as long as they have an energy source, such as a nuclear reactor, PV, or an RTG. A truly reactionless drive likely violates the laws of thermodynamics as we currently understand them, and that's why I stipulate effectively. Discovering such a thing would not only completely revolutionize space travel and the future of the human race, but would also likely turn everything we know about physics upside down. Story 7. The ability to accurately read outputs created by quantum computers would exponentially increase the speed and magnitude of data evaluation. This would make incomprehensibly large equations and data values concise and perceivable, which would in turn allow us to advance much faster in the sciences. Essentially, we would need to find a way to record the things going on outside of superposition, which as of now is impossible, as subatomic particles are never just one thing. For an example, say you are looking at a screen that will show a number ranging from 0 to 1. The screen shows 1 and you record it. However, at the same time that the 1 is on the screen in superposition, there is also an output of a 0 that happens to be entangled with the output of 1. So when we see 1, there is also a 0 tied to it that we can't perceive. This happens perpetually, so as of right now, there's no way to see what each and every particle is actually doing because of quantum entanglement. Story 8. The secret to cell degradation and death. Some creatures, like sharks, jellyfish, and lobsters, don't seem to age like humans do, and we're not completely sure why. They don't really die of old age or develop cancers or dementia like neurodegenerative illness. Once they reach adulthood, they just carry on until something tragic befalls them. Finding out what makes us different may not unlock immortality for us, but it will definitely make old age easier to deal with in a few decades, and the forever after that. Story 9. Many people may be silent carriers for mad cow disease and won't know for another decade or so. Mad cow disease from the 1980s, 1990s was due to cows being fed the remains of other animals. People then ate their beef and consumed prions, a protein that can destroy the human brain. It's thought that many people still might carry prions, but won't know until they start experiencing the symptoms of Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease or bovine spongiform encephalopathy, which might be 10 to 50 years after consuming the contaminated meat. It has a long incubation period. You can also contract the prions from blood transfusions, which is why so many UK citizens from that time period still aren't allowed to donate blood. Once the symptoms begin, cognitive impairment, memory loss, hallucinations, etc., you usually die within months. There is no cure or treatment. Story 10. The world has 70 less insects on average than it did 40 years ago. We really are coming up on our silent spring. For the people saying there are less pests, those aren't the ones we're worried about. Insect pollinators are vital to so many crops, we could be facing serious problems with certain food supplies soon. In recent years, China has had issues with apple and pear crops to the point where some regions have had to pollinate crops by hand. Also, insects form lower blocks of many food webs, and their disappearance will spell trouble for higher trophic levels. Story 12. Scientific literature's conclusion on Alzheimer's disease and other neurodegenerative diseases in general is that the diseases start decades before the first obvious symptoms and that we need to treat them at this stage. When you exhibit obvious symptoms, it's too late. Your brain is already mush. If you get diagnosed with Alzheimer's at 65, you have had the disease since your early 40s at least, and you experienced very mild symptoms, but didn't notice it, and your brain fought like hell to compensate for the deficit. When you get diagnosed, your brain is already very severely damaged and will never recover from the deficit. Story 13. Cancer geneticist here. Most cases of cancer that are sequenced generally just denote the prognosis or how long a patient has to live, rather than treatment options. People always say, let's cure cancer. However, this simplifies cancers, though it is only one disease. It's far more complicated than that. I studied at one of the largest cancer hospitals in the world, where the motto is to make cancer history. But the only obtainable goal is to make it chronic. We study and research as much as possible, but every cancer requires different research. And unfortunately, the powers that be often prohibit funding and proficient research. It's work I'm passionate about, but also a broken system that is infuriating to work in. Story 14. This is rather an engineering issue, but a lot of scientists are working on this as well. RGB micro LED displays. We can currently build fairly efficient blue and green micro LEDs from indium gallium nitride, but the red ones are missing. Red LEDs have been available for much longer than their blue counterparts, but we currently cannot make them small enough for a high PPI display. Many researchers and companies are trying to get the red ones working with several different approaches. And I believe we will see the first commercial applications, starting from smartwatches, smartphones, and AR or VR goggles within the next 5 years. Story 15. Large-scale water desalination. It may seem trivial to most people, but access to fresh water and water purification are the largest problems on the planet. Desalination has been extremely expensive for years, and never has the investment needed to break the scalability barrier. Well, our friends in the Middle East claim to have made some huge accomplishments over the last few years thanks to graphene and access to abundant power. Their new plants should be coming online next year. Not having to worry about access to clean water would mean massive jumps in agriculture, industrialization, and population. Story 16. The first cancer cure. There will never be a single cancer cure, but we will probably see the first successful and all cure for a few different types of cancer within the next 20 years, 100%. It's so close, we are right there. The leading push in mRNA vaccines makes me happy. The idea is each vaccine will be tailored specifically to each patient. At the base level, all they are doing is taking out your cells that already end cancer, T cells, and essentially teaching them to recognize a specific protein in your specific cancer, then giving them back to you so your own body can end the cancer. Your T cells end cancer all the time. I believe the estimate was every 5 minutes, your body ends a cancer cell. It's when these cancer cells hijack the immune system and hide themselves from the T cells when it becomes the cancer that we know, the cancer that grows and consumes. So we're basically trying to just point to where the cancer is at, giving the T cells a briefing first on how to recognize and attack the enemy, because they were tricked into thinking the cancer was normal cells. We send them back in with their new training and they get to work. I think anyway. Story 17. Brain chips will one day be able to enable us to live to age 150 by modulating our DNA, dialing gene expression up or down by altering RNA and chemicals and hormones in our body. If coupled with a vitamin implant, we could always operate optimally. It'll eradicate mental illness, a variety of diseases, and cancer. We could also alter our conscious state, increase productivity and focus while at work, as well as alter chemistry to relax the US at home. The chip will also be able to link to the internet one day, accessing information and images using our internal monologue to convey. Communicating telepathically would not really be used, as it'll be uncomfortable having an involuntary voice in your head. But in the near future, cure for HIV. It enters cells using CCR5 delta 32 receptors, and a substance can be developed via RNA to turn off CCR5 delta 32, curing HIV in your body. They can use CRISPR for this, but that's permanent removal. People without this gene, like me, are immune to HIV. And if bone marrow is transplanted to people with HIV, it cures it. There's been documented cases. There will be a cure for HIV within a decade. They'll already be working on it as they are developing RNA substances for other diseases like Alzheimer's. Why is there no news on RNA HIV research? It's likely a secret. Story 18. Anti-aging and life extension technology. We're not close in the sense of like next year, probably not even in 10 years, but quite possibly in 15 or 20 years. And right now, the median age of humans on Earth is just over 30, and the average life expectancy is over 70, meaning that most people currently alive are going to naturally live long enough to take advantage of these technologies. We don't even need to cure aging completely all at once. Because even if we can add, say, 5 healthy years to a person's life, that means they can also wait another 5 years for additional biochemistry research to improve the treatment and give them even more time. This effect compounds surprisingly quickly, assuming that technological progress doesn't stagnate. Even if we don't start taking the actual treatments for another couple decades, this is a change we should really start thinking about now because it's going to impact our lives in a very big way. I know it sounds crazy to talk about in a culture that has become so accustomed to aging and death, but if you wait until it stops sounding crazy before you start talking about it, you probably waited too long. Story 19. I don't think people realize how monumental fusion energy is, and we are very much on the cusp of it. We achieved ignition and net energy out of the reaction, but not total system. They also have been breaking records every couple of months in terms of ignition time. We're measuring it in seconds and minutes now, when we were measuring it in microseconds before. Unlimited, clean energy anywhere in the world is going to save the planet and go a long way towards alleviating a lot of human conflict. Story 20. I haven't seen it yet, so universal vaccines. mRNA techniques are now being adapted into general RNA therapies to treat a variety of viruses, with what tentatively looks like very promising results. So far, I've seen trials for HIV vaccines, universal flu vaccines, a universal COVID vaccine, and even a universal common cold vaccine. I think within a decade or two, we might actually have a vaccine against virtually every viral infection that's plagued humanity. I'm really hoping the human trials for these go well, and RNA targeting tech is so very powerful. Story 21. Endometriosis urine tests. Currently, the gold standard for diagnosing endometriosis is a laparoscopy, but new research has shown that certain proteins in the urine are dramatically increased for women with endo than those without. This means that as early as next year, we could have the first urinalysis test strips developed to diagnose the condition without surgery. Surgery may still be needed for treatment, but countless women will be able to opt for non-invasive treatment options first. This also means the condition can be diagnosed much faster than the current world average of 6.5 years from onset of symptoms, and women can access treatment much earlier. Story 22. Physicists and astrophysicists have made incredible leaps in the last 20 years, detecting exoplanets to the point where we can analyze the contents of their atmosphere for presence of biological or technological activity. They are also looking farther back in time towards the beginning of the universe, using infrared and even gravity waves. Where this gets really exciting is that with each refinement of this technology, they are getting closer to solving the discrepancies in physics, such as we still don't know how some elements are made. The smaller ones, like everything lighter than iron, get made in stars through fusion processes. Heavier ones, like gold, get made in supernovas. But there are ones that are more prevalent in the universe than they should be given the amount of energy it takes to create such heavy elements. Cesium, for instance. Point being, they have done like 90% of the work towards a final unified theory. Some are saying that the right application of AI will get us the rest of the way there. But I can tell you that there have been breakthroughs in PV solar and energy storage that will be driving down the cost of that tech and making it more efficient. In the near future, there will just be solar panels everywhere and no power plants. The main barriers to that being trade wars between China and the US, of course. Story 23, curing depression. It's already available. People just don't know about it because it's super expensive and sounds scary. It's called TMS, transcranial magnetic stimulation. I'm currently on my second week of a 6-week treatment. Monday, Friday for 6 weeks, I sit in a chair and have a machine with a magnetic coil sitting over my skull, specifically targeting the dorsolateral frontal cortex. A changing magnetic field is used to induce an electric current targeting and stimulating this part of the brain. Electromagnetism sounds like shock therapy, but it is not. It's super non-invasive. I sit in this chair for 3 minutes only, and there's an electric pulse, 4 seconds on, 8 seconds off in rotation. It feels like Pikachu is nibbling on my skull. My eye and jaw slightly twitches as the pulse flows. This stimulation to the dorsolateral frontal cortex helps the brain produce its own dopamine, serotonin, and epinephrine. Over time, basically curing the depression. And there's a coil that targets a different part of the brain to cure OCD if needed. It's safer than depression medications like Wellbutrin or Zoloft, and it has a high success rate. The best part for me is that back in September in California, TMS was approved by Medi-Cal, so I'm receiving this treatment completely on the insurance's dime. My psych says she has trouble convincing patients to take the treatment for free, insurance pays, because it sounds scary. Movies and TV have a big role in this fear. People hear brain and electricity and think of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest and such media. Story 24. I hope something for male pattern baldness, hair thinning, receding hairline, and hair loss in general comes along soon. Losing your hair sucks and can destroy your confidence and cause a lot of stress. Hair transplants here in the US are ridiculously expensive, and traveling to another country like Turkey can save you a lot of money but can be hit or miss. Do your research. Medications like finasteride and minoxidil are available. Once you start, you have to stay on them forever. The possible side effects of finasteride, erectile issues, mood, although these aren't super common, can be a concern. You're also required to be on finasteride in order to get a hair transplant. I'd also like to see advancements in treatment for depression. All the medications I've tried so far have made me emotionally numb and have had intimate side effects. I've heard good things about ketamine and transcranial magnetic stimulation, but insurance companies will do everything to not pay for these, requiring you to try at least 5 medications and other stuff, if I recall correctly. Story 25. Can't believe I haven't seen it yet, but cell reprogramming via iPSC, and it's already here for some cell types. A very cool Japanese dude got the 2012 Nobel Prize of Medicine for this. He and his team were able to deprogram a specialized cell and reprogram it into a different specialized cell. For instance, a fat cell into a cartilage cell. This will simply be one of the last big medical advances we make. Messed up your lungs? No bother, get some of your cells, water, and lots of love. And you've got a new pair. No compatibility issues, no rejection or meds, potentially inexpensive. Mind you, there are challenges and safety concerns yet, as you need to tinker with the cell's DNA in order to do it, which is tricky. And we're very, very far away from functional full organs. But the even more bonkers stuff is already happening. They have tried injecting healthy stem cells in the area of damaged tissue, cartilage, if I remember correctly. And somehow, the pre-existing cells were able to communicate with the new stem cells, repairing that tissue. I can't put enough emphasis on how absolutely stupid this is, how potentially we could repair parts of our bodies that now we can't dream of repairing, and for potentially peanuts. The possibilities are very near limitless if we manage to make them perfectly safe and we get the engineering part right.